able to use this tool called AI, and the attitude we have towards it is not necessarily a tool, but a thought partner. That certainly is a game changer.
Welcome to a brand new episode of the M&A Mastermind podcast presented by Cornerstone International Alliance. I'm your host, Nick Olson. On this show, I get the opportunity to talk with the brightest minds in lower middle market M&A. Together, we discuss industry intelligence, deal management, shared successes, specialized expertise, and much more. If you serve the small to medium-sized business owner, this show will offer you tactics and insights you can use and implement now to become a master in M&A. Hey, everybody. Welcome to a brand new episode of the M&A Mastermind podcast. My guest today is a member of Cornerstone International Alliance. He is one of the partners at ICCG based out of Dallas, Texas. I was just with him last month in Scottsdale. Got to spend 4 days with Grant and his partner, Dave. Please welcome my guest today, Grant MacQuilkan. Grant, how you doing?
Really well. It's beautiful outside in Dallas.
Awesome. Well, it was I just got done with a 22-inch snowstorm last week, so I'll take anything but that. And it's all melting now. So, in Wisconsin, winter and the month of March and spring, I was like, it was 70 degrees one day, and then 3 days later, we're getting 22 inches of snow. So you never know. But
Yikes.
Trending upward. It's like, these are the months where why do I live in Wisconsin? So
yeah, exactly. But we have several of those. It's just on the other end of the thermometer.
Right, exactly. So, Grant, tell us, a little bit about your firm. You guys are based in Dallas. A little bit about your background, why you started the firm, and just some of the great work that you guys are doing.
Yeah, I often tell people I'm a tennis player, converted to a CPA, converted to an entrepreneur, and now an M&A advisor. And all of that kind of, comes out in the personality of our firm. We're competitive, but we are also experienced in the area of, the technical side as well as just owning businesses. And so, the way that we like to hold ourselves out is just people that care about people. Want to help people accomplish selling the business, and sometimes on the buy side mandate as well. And it has been an absolute privilege to help people do that. And so we enjoy it. We're a small team, a boutique. We got some young bucks that are running hard to learn and to grow in their ability to do this without Dave and I. And we're working on the idea of being useful but not necessary.
How's that going so far?
It's going actually really well. These guys are part of CIA is that they're not just learning from us, right? They're learning from a lot more people than just Dave and I, and they're getting different ideas and learning that there are more than just our way of doing things. And so they're actually taking advantage of that and learning a bunch on the way and becoming pretty good at what they do.
Yeah, amazing. And, we have, speaking of, just learning from each other, that's one of the things that, we do here at Cornerstone International Alliance. We have our first AI collaboration group coming up here in 2 days. And I'm really excited for that because as we talked about and we were in person in Scottsdale, AI is all the rage right now. And I'm very excited to see how all of our firms, we have 35 firms in the group right now, how all of us are using AI, how we're thinking about AI, and, kind of coming up with like a menu of items where it's like, we're all using these platforms for these purposes. And so we're all going to learn from each other, but that's just kind of what we do here at Cornerstone.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I'm really excited about that. But, we're here to talk about your experience as a partner in Cornerstone International Alliance. This was your second in-person conference, if I remember correctly. I think last year when we were in Miami, your firm was literally like less than a week part of the alliance, right? So
yeah,
kind of take us back to that Miami conference last year. What were your thoughts, just initial thoughts of the group, the conference, just the collaboration, and from being there, being so brand new to the group?
Yeah, I remember coming away really excited about what I'd found. I remember using the phrase, I found my people. And what I mean by that is you're around a like-minded group that's very experienced and capable on top of that. and in a discipline that you don't really hang around too much. We're around all kinds of other professionals, but not necessarily around other people. And what I really loved was that people are collaborative. And the way I phrase it is not really collaborative. They're for you. They want you to be successful. And I told Dave, I said, dude, you cannot miss next year. You've got to be there. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I bet you we were the first two to sign up for this next one in Scottsdale.
You know what? I think you're correct in saying that. And it's funny too. You said that a year ago, and both you and Dave came to Scottsdale, and we call it a CollabCon. It's a collaboration conference, and it was our second iteration of that, and we had it about a month ago. And Grant and Dave, were both there. And we always say we want at least one representative from each firm to attend if you can. And the more people that show up, the better it is. And so having the two of you from the same firm was great. And we had a couple others that did the same thing. And what would you say for both your perspective? Was it worth your time and to be there?
Absolutely. And I'm not saying that just because we were exposed to certain things. I think both of us being there, I took unbelievably amount of notes, right? There's several pages of notes, and because there's so many nuggets and comments and things like that spark thoughts. And because Dave and I are very different, we come from different disciplines. He's picking up different things as well. And there's some really smart people in the room, and they've come to sometimes different positions than you have. But a lot of times, even when they come to the same conclusions, you're going, well, it kind of gives you that confidence. So maybe I do know a few things, right? And it just there were plenty of opportunities for Dave and I to compare notes as well after the fact. Did you hear that? And maybe we should switch roles in certain cases with our team, and they're structured this way. Are we sure we're structured the right way? So it's not just the time of the upfront presentations. It's also just listening to the conversations and hearing how people do things and why. And the ability, honestly, to the approachability of everybody in the room is like, I can come up to the guy and say, hey, you said that you do it this way. Why do you do that? It's not like you're questioning somebody's, intelligence. You really are wanting to know so that you can learn from people. I don't want to say it's a safe space, because sometimes I feel real dumb around some of those guys, but there's just some great ideas, and then also knowing what is normal. A lot of times we think we're way out there, like we're so different in what we require. If you require, for example, a sell side QOB, for everything over $2 million of EBITDA, then you think, well, I'm just being, the guy that's, the fly in the ointment to the business owner. No. There are other people doing it, and it's more normative than what people say it is, right? And so it just gives you confidence, and it also gives you some great ideas, and just the numerous ways that you put everybody in the room in different sort of forums just helps that happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why we do it. And we'll get into those, different types of segments or situations we have come up. But I love the fact that you said, you learn from each other, but you also get validation from what you guys are thinking, because, every firm in our group is pretty experienced. They're, in M&A and business ownership. They've done a lot of deals, pretty smart, intelligent people running, high quality firms. And, we always say it's an abundance mindset that, I know what I know, but you might know something different. And, it's a non, we always say it's a non, you talk about it's a safe space. It absolutely is, because it's a non-judgment, it's a judgment-free zone. Yeah. And just because you're doing it one way and, they're doing it their way, both are right, but you can take little bits and pieces of what others are doing, make it your own unique situation that's going to work for you and your firm. And I would be surprised if anybody ever made you feel like you're dumb for raising a question. I feel like, they might give you a little bit of a hard time, but because that's just a fun group. But no one's going to say, Dave, are you, or Dave, I keep calling you part of it, Grant, you are crazy for thinking that way. You get like, no one's going to judge you that way. They're just like,
Yeah.
that's interesting. Or, but we do it this way, and it's not saying, and we always say we got the no jerks rule. It's like, I'm not going to dominate the conversation because I know the most. Like, we all know a lot of stuff and we're all, pretty good at it. So let's all be open-minded.
Yeah, I think the only time that ever comes up where you start feeling like that is you listen to the way another seasoned guy is answering that question. You go,
Mhm.
huh, when I grow up, I want to be like you, kind of
Right.
thing.
Right.
And so, whenever look, you never want to be the smartest guy in the room because then
No.
you don't need anybody else in the room. And
Hmm.
so just having other people who come from different sort of disciplines entering into this whole M&A area, and then just how they think through things. What works there may not work, for example, geographically where you
Or
are.
industry.
It plants ideas in your head, and you go, okay, I need to think through that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thought-provoking conversations and questions. That's really
Right.
what we strive to do. And you mentioned the different segments that we provide. And day one, we get there and we're talking about, what does a successful 2026 look like for you and your firm? We had a mastermind discussion on, you know, business development, the $1 million question. How are we all finding clients? And we also talked about I talked about the AI thing, like what is everybody doing with AI? And that was the first part of the first day was these, we call them mastermind discussions, where we're getting together in small groups and we're covering a topic. And your group of 5 or 6 or 7 people are, and there's 4 other groups like that are having the same conversation. And then we all come back and kind of, talk about, the highlights. And inevitably all 4 groups have different highlights, some overlap, but, not only can you, benefit from a conversation for 45 minutes with 6 individuals, but now you understand what everybody else, talked about. Tell us a little bit about your experience, some of those mastermind discussions, Grant, that you had while we were at the conference.
Yeah, in that particular one, the whole business development thing, I mean, we're all interested in that, right? But when you start talking about that, you generally think through, you know, ways of marketing. You know, that's sort of the normal sort of discussion that you'll get with other people. In this particular case, it morphs into what tools are you using? And then a very, very useful piece was who in your firm is doing it. And so it's not just, what you're doing. It also helps you kind of in our long sales cycle that is typical in this business. There's there's a lot of touches that happen and there's a lot of presentations that happen. And in the process, if you're limited to your own ability to do all of those pieces. You can't get much done. So knowing what other firms are doing with giving pieces of that process away to some of their people, now giving it to AI and AI agents as well. Those are the kinds of things that are super helpful in going through that. But I think the other piece is just you know, for example, when we're in Scottsdale, there was one, we were busy in the middle of crazy changes in the software as a service world. We're in the middle of trying to figure out how to market a very niche company in that world. And there was another guy who had a contact with a strategic buyer in that world, and he's in the SaaS world, all the time. And so while you're talking, you're not just getting ideas, you're actually getting practical help that is super helpful. Hey, you need to talk to this guy because Joe can put you into contact with 2 or 3 people who might be interested. There's those, it's not when you say business development, you're not talking about, okay, you need to, sharpen up your logo. I mean, it's
Right.
it's way more than that when you're getting together with people at that level.
Not only are you learning and understanding how people are attacking it, but also, like you just said, you're getting connected with the right people at the right time, and hopefully they can move your deal forward.
Well, I will tell you, and this is probably the biggest compliment that I can pay you for the way that you put that piece together, is that it both when I came out of Miami as well as this time, We literally made changes to how we do things and what we do as a result of it. And
Yeah.
so you don't do that when you're just going to a raw session and it's just kind of like showboating on what you've done. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Yeah. And we, we've tried those things in the past, and it's like what our group wants. And I think this is just a testament to the type of people that are in this group, but also how they're going about, stepping up for their clients. Is they want to learn, they want to understand how to do this better and quick, more efficient to get the best result for their clients.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like we can give you the like I said, the rah speeches, and you guys are amazing and good luck and let's have a great year. But it's like, let's be more practical. Let's dive into the weeds on how we're doing each of these things. So now we can take, these 4 or 5, whatever many things back to our team, and we're going to implement them tomorrow because we feel like someone else did it that way, and we love that that idea, and we think it can make our process better.
Absolutely.
Then we went from, mastermind discussions to deal collaboration segment, which is a way that also fosters a lot of collaboration. So basically what we do is, we had 25 people in the room. Every firm got a chance to stand up and pitch their deals to the rest of the group. And, for me, it's twofold. It's one, now we're all learning who's working on what kind of deals, what industries, who's got active, deals in this space, who's closed deals in a certain industry. But also now we're fostering collaboration and connection and being able to help each other out. And so Dave, or I keep calling you Dave.
It's probably better.
Grant, what was your experience with our deal collaboration segment? And what are some things that you got out of that for your own firm?
This is kind of weird, but I am not known for my lack of words. But I got so much out of listening to the way those other guys were answering questions as to how they were structuring deals. And, if we are, I think we're really good at the way we structure deals. It's got to do with my tax background, the multiple transactions that we've done over the years to get around difficulties. But man, some of those guys, they are thinking out of the box, which is really key in our world, right? So when you're doing lower middle market companies, there's always hair on deals. And so you listen to these guys and you listen to how they navigate the challenges that come with the lower middle market. And you go, okay, there's an expertise here that I need to listen. I need to shut up and listen, basically. And, and then when we asked them or when we presented, a little bit of what we're facing, you get the whole, have you ever thought about XYZ? And, it's not basic. Most of the time, because they know you're not an idiot, but they're asking you, have you thought about, something that's fairly a sophisticated solution, maybe a possible solution, even who you market a company to. It's not just how you get around those things. It's also, hey, people in this industry might be interested in that. Or people at a little bit higher up the food chain may be looking for something like that. It's super helpful, But again, even as I listen to the advice that are given to other people, I don't feel quite as dumb when it's advice headed somewhere else and I can learn from it.
That's hilarious.
And look, some guys have way more experience than we do in certain industries. And I'm like, okay, take note of that, not just because I have access to that expertise as a CIM member, but also because I'm learning, right?
And yeah, you're going to put that away for future. Like, hey, I remember that individual was just closed 3 deals in XYZ industry. I'm going to call him because now I got the deal in the same space.
Exactly.
And what has your experience been like, whether it's at a conference like this, even at dinner or, at the social activities you did, or even just picking up the phone and being like, hey, I got this deal, like just picking someone's brain. Like, what has your experience been like that? People have been willing to share and helpful.
Yeah, I think that's where I came up with the phrase, people are for you. There, and I don't know that, um, I don't feel, um, I don't feel like it's a conversation like I have with Dave, for example, right? Because we're business partners, been business partners since 1998. But there's a for you thing there that makes them, um, I use this saying, you got to be receivable. You can't come across as arrogant and know it all, and not wanting to learn, or even listen to the other person. It's a big problem we have in this country today. Just and I've always found these guys and the ladies to be super receivable. In other words, just they're not coming at you or arguing with you. They're actually just wanting you to do well. And it's always come across in every conversation that we've had.
This episode of the M&A Mastermind podcast is powered by Cornerstone International Alliance, where leading M&A firms come together. As part of this international network, you get access to global opportunities, over 200 M&A experts, enhanced collaboration and knowledge sharing, and some of the best M&A tools and resources available, all to help you take your firm to the next level. Ready to join this exclusive network? Visit cornerstoneia.com/new member today. Another thing we do is we bring in a couple of keynote speakers to our conferences. This year we had two. One was in person, one was virtual. And, we always talk about practicality to what we do now. Two of them, I think, our two speakers this year were very practical. Was Ivy Conefree. She talked in person about becoming an AI-driven leader. Like we said before, AI is all the rage right now. And she was able to come in and talk to us about, she talked a lot about prompting and how you look at AI and how an AI can be an extension of your workforce and how you go about prompting it to get the results that you're looking for. And then we had a world-renowned speaker, Mark Levy. We brought him in. He talks about differentiation and how you can set yourself apart from the rest of the industry. So generally speaking, Grant, what were your takeaways or thoughts on the two speakers that we had and what they talked about?
Yeah, game changer. That's kind of funny. The practical approach of the AI talk. And I started to think about this, and it's like, especially for us older guys, and really that makes me out like I don't know what I'm doing. But I mean, Dave and I own three technology companies for 14 years. We know technology, we know what it does, but we have to be motivated sometimes to not yell at the kids next door, in the next door office, to tell them what to do, what you need, right? Because it's such a great tool if you understand the benefit of using it. And she sat down with us and literally, practically, while we were doing it, showed us how to benefit in a way that was super unique, I thought. And, again, I'm not a complete idiot. I mean, I joke that, I'm not a donkey that needs to learn how to drive a tractor, right? I know computers, I know technology, but the method that she presented was a game changer in the way that I use AI on a daily basis, as well as just even preparing presentations, deep research, all those kinds of things. And it gave me a great vocabulary as well. A lot of things that we do is we're talking to people and we're helping others all the time. And giving us the right vocabulary was super helpful. That's, that formulation of query that she taught us will go a long way in our firm to help us do a lot of things. I think the time with Mark was maybe Dave and I benefited more than anybody else in the room. I'm sure. I don't think anybody else benefited as much as we did. Helping us communicate succinctly what differentiates us has always been difficult for Dave, because we have a very diverse background and we do a lot of stuff. But ultimately, our motive is to help people. And for some reason, this guy has just a gift to put it in, 4 words basically, or whatever it is, that just was just really helpful. And then we got the privilege of spending a few minutes with him one on one, or two on one if you want to be accurate. And it was it was super confirming, because what we learned in his presentation was ultimately exact. He confirmed we put what he had talked about in practice. And I would say for Dave, that was probably one of the highlights of the weekend, as far as content goes, for sure. And so it'll we've already used it over and over, and it'll be super helpful going forward for sure.
And that's why you look at having practical type of keynote speakers come in, because now you're taking something away immediately and making your firm better just by having that person
Yeah.
speak to you in front of a group and individually.
Well, and the discipline that he has, and same way with the AI lady that presented to us. These aren't chumps. I mean, they're experts in their field, and we're clearly not experts in either one of those fields. But we use those things all the time. And so super helpful. Thank
Yeah,
you for putting that together for sure.
absolutely. Well, and we all are using it enough to be dangerous, but if we can be next level with it and to really benefit our own practice and our clients' outcomes, that's really when we're looking at bringing on speakers, as a group, or whether it's Scott or myself, like what do people want to learn? We always get the feedback of the group, when we're creating these kinds of conferences, but it's always rise to the top. It's got to be practical. We got to have some takeaways that we can implement, now, and our clients ultimately have to be better for it. And I think with these two speakers, Ivy and Mark, I think they both hit the mark on those two things. Now, the group of people we brought in were 4 private equity firms, and this is always just a great exercise, but also great spending time with these individuals. So we brought in 4 different private equity groups, and they spent at least a day. Some of them stayed for an extra half a day, and we just got extensive time with them. And it's always great to we did a discussion on ROI. How are they looking at the return on investments for their companies, which was a great discussion. We presented them with a deal. We did a Shark Tank event where you guys got to be a part of their investment committee, go over the LOI on this, all on the same deal, and just to see how everybody looked at them a little bit uniquely was very interesting. But also the LOIs were pretty vastly different for the same exact company receiving the same amount of information, and then just having the small group discussions with a private equity firm. But then, we got, social time, dinners with these guys. The next day they came and we talked about pitches and what can we do better on our pitches to better get in front of you guys. And so just overall, what was your time like with these private equity groups and their willingness to come in and be open books with us?
Yeah, that was one of those things that I told Dave about the year before. Hey, you won't believe what they did. This is great. This is so good. It's so helpful, because most of our transactions on the sell side, we're selling to private equity groups, and so it was so insightful, knowing a little bit about the inside workings of the other side of the table. Just super helpful. I think also it helps that the private equity groups that you've pulled in, they're not necessarily the same.
Right.
They're not looking for the same thing, but they seem to be, you know, decent guys. These guys look at thousands of deals, and they do a handful every year. And so, you can, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say that that's an excuse to be an idiot or a knucklehead, but, They've got, I mean, you put together a good team of guys that really helped. What also had that I want to help you kind of attitude, which was really helpful. I know they're looking for the opportunity to source deals through us for sure, but they just seem to be really good guys. And that made them approachable, and so we could kind of get under the hood a little bit in those social times that was a little bit more than maybe what they would present, in a big group setting.
Yeah.
But I thought what you did this year was and asked them to, when you exit, what do you look for, when you're going to exit? And it's kind of funny. It wasn't really the point of what they presented, but I think the biggest thing was when one of those guys said, "Hey, just so you know, the week after we buy a company, we have investment banks and larger groups start sweet talking us, because they want to buy it or they want to help sell it." And
Right.
so, Dave and I looking at each other, we've been, you know, working with this one firm or one company, manufacturing company, and they're at, $75 million worth of sales. They're waiting until they get 120, and then they're going to go to market. And I'm not giving them anywhere near the kind of detail that would let them believe that I know that industry very, very well. And just knowing that there are investment bankers out there that are giving them that pitch that these guys got, we got to up our game. And so consequently, on Monday, I'm going to be a whole lot more prepared for a meeting that we have that is not going to be done. The deal's not going to be done this year. It's going to be done in next year, mid-year maybe, if they reach their sales goals. And guess what? I'm going to tell them on Monday everything they need to know about their industry, because not that they don't know it, but I want them to know that I know it way ahead of time. And we would romance them for a year and a half without really displaying our expertise. And that's changed. And we won't make that mistake again. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And so and again, that wasn't the purpose of that whole presentation. It was more to go through the pitch, but that's what I got out of it. And so you just don't know exactly what you're going to take away, that changes what you do in your firm. It's a completely different objective. You didn't plan that, but that was my takeaway.
Yeah. Well, and you might take this away and I might take that away. And, we all look at it uniquely, but if we can put these really, experienced, intelligent, people in front of you, these buyers that are open books, that are willing to help you out, I think, just a lot of great things can come out of that. And
Yeah.
I do think, kind of that aha moment for you guys, it sounds like with that discussion is like, I need to be doing a better job of that. And I got this prime example that I'm going to change now. And we're going to, do this and see how it goes. And hopefully we're staying top of mind, and we're definitely going to get that opportunity to sell a company when they get to that benchmark.
Yeah. I think we work really hard on being likable way ahead of the time they go into market. And by that time, they may go to somebody else that they don't really like, but they seem like they know what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? And it just upped our game in that area.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like a successful segment with those individuals, and yeah, they were great. And we do try to find a different variety. Actually, three of them were private equity groups. One was a family office,
Right.
and just how they look at these opportunities, uniquely. And like you said before, I think we asked them, a couple of them, like, how many deals do you see come across your desk in a year? I think it was like 3,000, 5,000. Well, how many did you actually buy? 10, maybe 4,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
so it's always like, well, how do you separate, how do you get your deals to the top of that stack of deals on your desk? And and I think, just like you said, that pitch and how we can separate ourselves. And it's always like, what information do you want to know? Do you need to know? And what don't you care about? Like, what are we wasting our time on in a sim that you don't even really care about?
That was the key takeaway in Miami.
Yes.
The first conference was, oh my gosh, I'm spending half of my time on stuff you throw in the trash can. That's crazy, you know?
Yep. Stop putting that stuff in there.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, just, it's getting smart people, successful people, driven people in the same room, and a lot of great things can happen. Now
Yep.
we got outside the conference room, and this is another thing, because you go 3 days, straight of 8-9 hours in a conference room. I think we're all gonna, go nuts. But we do this on purpose, not only for that reason, but we also want everybody who's there to spend time together in a meaningful way that's not specifically talking about a certain topic or listen to someone present. You're just out doing, like, some people played pickleball. Did you play pickleball, right?
Yeah.
Yep, pickleball. Went to a baseball game. Some went to on a hike. We went out to dinner with the private equity groups. We all went to, a pop stroke and did mini golf together as a big group. And it's just getting out, but also spending meaningful time together to develop those, you're still talking business, in most cases, right? But now
Right.
you're developing relationships, trust, rapport with these individuals. And that's something that you can't really replicate anywhere else but in person, and even in social events, that we're networking. What did you take away from that time that you had outside of the conference room with the other members of the alliance?
You know, it kind of validates your filtering process, I guess, on who can join. It's you get to know people's character when they miss a 2 foot putt. You know,
or hit a ball into the net.
no, look, it's. I mean, I say that jokingly. I think you have conversations where you're catching up with who they are as a person. Man, I like this guy. I can do business with. I trust him. You just you kind of get to know them. But on a practical side, I took 2 Uber rides with one of the members in a neighboring state, and when we were over in Miami in the first conference. And this last year, he's referred 3 or 4 prospects to us, and so and could be a source to help us, refer him some business that he does. He's referring business because he doesn't do this particular niche, and doesn't want anything to do with it, but he wants to take care of his clients,
Right.
his network of people. And then on the flip side, he does some things that we don't do either. And so it just so this year, I made a point of, you know, playing pickleball with him, not because I can get more out of him. It's just that I enjoyed interacting with him during the year, and it was fun. We started a friendship. And so you can do friendship over Zoom, but it's a little difficult. And then you get together and you kind of hang out together, play pickleball, you play putt putt golf or whatever it is, and all of a sudden you're able to make those relationships a little bit stronger. You can feel a little bit more free to ask questions and get to know the person professionally so that you can help each other in the process. And that casual time is not just me and that guy. The casual time is when I listen to another guy ask him questions. And I'm just kind of in the middle of a putt and I'm going, that's an insightful answer, and it's you know and it can be stupid stuff like how you handle a family matter. It doesn't have to be business or anything like that, but it affects your business, right? And so those are incredibly helpful. I don't think anybody's going to Scottsdale to do pop stroke. There are other places you can play pop stroke, but where can you go and casually hang out with really capable people who are, you know, in the same discipline as you are and they're for you? I mean, it's just, there's not many. I don't hang out. I mean, you can go to various networking things and you may, okay, that guy does what I do, but I mean, we're not getting together. It's,
Right.
it's just not that way. And so those times were super helpful.
Yeah. And yeah, it's good to have fun and kind of let your guard down a little bit, and start meeting people at a personal level and then understanding them. And like I said, that just fosters relationships outside of the conference and in the
Yep.
future, and doing deals together and getting referrals. And, hey, you probably, I could text you a quick question and you're going to answer me, and, whatever. And so that's really, the whole intention of the entire in-person conferences that we do are connections first and foremost. How can we collaborate? How can we learn from each other? We're all very, very well ingrained in this industry. We've got an amazing brain trust of information right here within this group. Let's just pull that out of each other and finding it in different ways that resonate with people. Last question, Grant. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, and I know this has been great discussion. What would you say, just from the conference, being in person in Scottsdale as a group? Like I said, we had 25 people plus there, representing probably 22 of our firms that are in our group. What were like the top 2 or 3 takeaways that you and Dave took away that you guys are putting into practice right now?
Yeah, I think, I've already mentioned a couple. We've always look, when you've been business partners for 30 years and you've struggled with the same thing for 30 years, and all of a sudden somebody drops the answer on you, that's pretty significant. And certainly how Dave and I specifically are able to use this tool called AI, and how it is a thought partner, and the attitude we have towards it is not necessarily a tool but a thought partner. That certainly is a game changer. I think just even talking to Scott at PopStroke, for example, and kind of in conjunction with several other conversations with some of the guys that have larger firms than us, and just how they allocate the work, and who they hold accountable for certain things, and the process within a firm in order to be useful but not necessary, so to speak. We came back and had a team meeting and changed how we do things, and challenged our guys to learn in certain areas so that we could do that. And just, and some of that is communication. Some of it is just putting tools in place or acquiring tools that are necessary in order for those processes to put in place. But I would say that's probably as 30,000 foot as I can get. If I get granular, there are numerous little things that actually affected deals we have on the table today, and so that's very helpful.
Yeah. And that's what we strive to do. Like I said, we try to create an environment where you're learning, developing relationships, but also have some key immediate takeaways that you can use to better your own firm and provide better outcomes for your clients. And
Yeah, I would, let me just add this. I think, I had I had the I think the advantage of attending a conference before I knew anything about it. I mean, I obviously did diligence
yeah,
on what you guys are about, and probably wore you out on some questions. But I think that was the start, and it energized me and encouraged me, like I said, with not just practical tips but also confidence in certain areas, and you pass that stuff on, right? And so I would say we're not likely to miss any of these because of all of the takeaways, but also because of that energy, and that that encouragement that you get, that you're not an idiot. You are thinking rightly about something.
that's great. I appreciate that insight, Grant. Last question. What would you say to a firm out there who doesn't have an organization like this? They're kind of out on their island. They're isolated and they don't know where to go with themselves. And why help me maybe make a pitch from an actual partner of ours in Cornerstone International Alliance as to why firms out there who do what we do in the M&A space, lower middle market, why should they consider and Cornerstone International Alliance as a way to help them elevate their firm?
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I've always thought that we do something that we are good at. But, and let me just be, this is at the risk of sounding somewhat arrogant. Dave and I are not lacking people to hang out with. We've led very large organizations. We know a ton of people. We are networked like crazy, and always. I mean, Dave is right now. He's in front of 150 to 200 people teaching them. So I mean, we're around a lot of people all the time. I'm not looking to hang out with people, but this group is different. Um, you know, they're our people, meaning motivated similarly that we are to help other people using the skill that we've been given. They're smarter than us a lot of times, most of the time, I would say, serving others like we want to, and willing to help others like we are. And so that like-mindedness, and that, I'm a former tennis player, and I hated, even traveling on a pro tour. It's lonely. You don't have anybody who is on your team. When you play for college, it's awesome because you got teammates, you got this natural community. You don't have to be by yourself when you've lost a match or something like that. You can't pay for your hotel room the next week. I think it's a similar sort of feeling to me. It's I've got a team that that is for me, that I get to hang with, but I still have to go out there and be the pro and win matches. But I get to hang and know that I'm part of a team that is got my back on industries that I don't know what I'm doing in. Maybe they got a way around some hair on the deal. All those kinds of things. There's a comfort there, right? And I would say it's a similar sort of analogy that I would say Cornerstone offers us the ability to collaborate, but it's more. It's being with people that seem to uh, have a similar heart towards helping people, a similar heart, that seeks excellence in what they do, but is collaborative.
That was a great way to put it. I love that analogy is related to tennis. Grant, thank you so much for joining me. Love the conversation and really appreciate all the nice comments and words, not only to us, but also to the group as a whole. And appreciate it. Where could we send our listeners to learn more about you and your firm? Maybe it's a website, or how can they connect with you?
Yeah, iccgcapital.com is our website. There's several ways to connect with us on that particular site, but it's not difficult. Normally, ICCG is kind of a short, it's an acronym for Integrated Corporate Consulting Group, and typically people tend to find us on the web somehow.
Perfect.
But
Yeah, definitely connect with Grant and Dave. Like I said, as you can tell by our conversation here today, they're more than willing to help out and a valued client or partner of Cornerstone International Alliance. So thank you, Grant and Dave, for being a part of this group, making this group better, elevating it up to the level that it is. And that is who we look for, is firms that are going to elevate the rest of the group. And we have a great group here. And it definitely showed it's a bright light in Scottsdale. So thank you and Dave for coming. Thank you for taking the time to be there and sharing your insights with us here today. That is all we have for today's episode of the M&A Mastermind podcast. Make sure to share, like, and comment on this episode. Pass it on to anybody you think might benefit from our conversation. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to them and get notified every Thursday morning when a brand new episode airs. And thank you for tuning in every week. Take care, everybody. Until next time. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the M&A Mastermind podcast, and a special thank you to our presenting sponsor, Cornerstone International Alliance. If you enjoyed today's discussion, don't forget to like, share, and comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. We'll be back next week with more insights, strategies, and real-life experiences to help you take your M&A game to the next level.